Can I mention the David Knight thing?
Oh, you're going to mention it all, and we're live. Just so everybody knows, that was Robbie Martin. And folks, we're going big or we're going home. I want to put out a few disclaimers right here, right now, 1,000%. I am not telling you who won the election. YouTube, Google, Alphabet, let's not penalize me for trying to give you fake news about the election. I'm not calling it here. I'm telling you what is going on. I'm telling you what's happening right now. What do I expect to happen in the next few days, weeks, and maybe even months? We'll see. We got Robbie Martin of MediaRoots.org here to talk about what he feels is about to happen. I need you guys to thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. Rockfin Monday, 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. So make sure you make that free account. Now, let's talk, Robbie. Let's get to the business really quickly. MediaRoots.org is the website. You just did your 10th anniversary show. A very heavy agenda is, of course, your YouTube channel. And in my opinion, a very heavy agenda is at play no matter what you believe here. Because let's be honest, right now, throughout social media, those that voted Biden-Harris are declaring victory. Zombie Joe has released his statement. Apparently, he's called Kamala. They are going to form a government at a rapid pace, in my opinion. And the media has now said they've won. Those who voted for them and promoted them have said they've won. They have declared victory. We have not heard a retort from Trump yet. However, we know that legal action has been taken in several states and probably will continue to be taken. Now, under no circumstance, in my opinion, Robbie, do I believe those who think that Trump won, okay, will think that Biden won no matter what. No matter what investigations, no matter what happens from here on out, they will never accept a Biden victory was legitimate. On the opposite end of that, the Biden camp, okay, who believes he won. If Trump somehow in the courts, and we'll get to all those different avenues. I know you don't think there are many, but I think there are a lot that are going to be drug out till God knows one. If somehow the courts side with Trump and he pulls off a victory, the media will portray it as an outright dictatorship. This will be the year that democracy died and not survived if they actually prove that there was legitimate interference or they don't count certain votes. There's a lot of ways this could go. But no matter what, there is a narrative set up where, in my opinion, the truth will probably never be known, and a clash of an already very divided America on the left and right is inevitable. These are my feelings and opinions. What do you think right now, analyzing this whole thing in the last couple hours, the media declaring it? We kind of saw this happening in a slow rollout. I had predicted probably Friday night. Looks like it's Saturday morning, afternoon-ish. Robbie Martin, take it away. Let's hear it.
Well, Jason, I have to say I am very disappointed. And by that, I don't mean that I'm disappointed that Trump lost. I don't vote for the lesser of two evils in a presidential election. The last time I did, I regretted doing it. And that was all the way back in 2004. So I can forgive myself for that one. But I am very disappointed in Trump's energy levels right now. Because I think the glue that needs everything to stick together right now is it needs to be coming from him. And by that, I mean, Trump needs to switch out of the Jeb Bush energy level mode that he's in right now and into the fierce fighter Trump, the Roy Cohn counterpunching Trump that people, loved in the first place. And even though I dislike Trump strongly, I think that he's pretty much just a representation of one faction of the deep state. I still think it's really interesting to see that he has essentially for the last 4 days become a mixture of Jeb Bush and Hayden Biden. He has basically only appeared on video twice. Once when he basically said, as far as I'm concerned, I've won this thing. He seemed very defeated, deflated. In his second press conference, I mean, that was some of the lowest energy delivery I've ever seen him do in any speech throughout his entire presidency. Psychologically speaking, I do think Trump is wearing his heart on his sleeve. I don't think this is some kind of 40D chess move where he's pretending to be deflated, pretending to be sad. I think he actually is. And I think that that's the glue that his MAGA street force needs. And even some of his surrogates like Rudy Giuliani, Corey Lewandowski, who are out there doing their own press conference right now. They said it was going to be at the Four Seasons. It turns out it was actually at some gardening center. I don't know why they decided to do the speech there. I mean, if you watch their press conference, Rudy and Corey Lewandowski, they seem really, really angry, and not necessarily just angry at the press and the media. There's an anger there where I think on some level they know that Trump has abandoned them. And that's my prediction, is I do think Trump has basically telegraphed so far that he has thrown in the towel. Now, what you're talking about, these legal battles, I can only see them really catching fire if Trump decides to flip a switch and stay in for the fight.
Well, he's tweeted. He's put out
his tweets, though, Jason. I mean, even his tweets are fairly weak. One short little phrases, all caps. That's not the Trump fire that I think is needed right now. It's needs more than tweets. I mean, even let's say, look what he did after COVID. Mm-hmm. He put out like 4 videos, trying to show that he was still strong, that he was going to make it through it. They convinced me, like when I saw those videos, I'm like, oh, dude, the dude's back. This is a different scenario where he's missing a window of opportunity, an important one, to do many of the things that I think a lot of people expected him to do that he's simply not doing. So that I think is a really important thing that's happening right now, is I think that Trump needs to be in the fight. He needs to be in the mix. He needs to be talking on video. He needs to be doing speeches. He can't be hiding right now. And I think that that's a big problem for the people who want him to stay and fight. So I think if a switch gets flipped at some point, he may do that. But I think he's already lost an important window of opportunity. And also, Jason, one thing I'm disappointed by is where's Q? Q hasn't posted since election eve.
Well, let's hold on. Let's get to let me absorb before we even get to the Q stuff, because obviously we got to talk Pachenik and the QR codes and all that good stuff. But first,
radioactive isotope watermarks, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we even get there, here's what I'm looking at. I think that right now, Trump has already seen how they portrayed him in that first press conference, right, where he did come out swinging and say each state basically they were going to file a lawsuit in that and contest it. And they cut away. I forget where Shepard Smith is at now. Where is he? He's over at MSNBC. Yeah. So they cut away at that one and about 75% of the news feeds. Now, I truly believe that this is going to be way beyond 2000, Gore Bush 2.0. I think that basically right now he's waiting for Joe Biden to come out and declare victory. And then you mark my words, within 60 minutes, there will be a video press conference. Okay, that's my prediction. I could be way wrong on that part. Now, I'm seeing at least, here we go, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and probably Georgia, six states that will see some kind of legal recourse that will begin in the states individually, and then depending on how those go, they will go to state Supreme Courts and then possibly the Supreme Court. Now, Gore is already on TV saying he should concede and, bend the knee and be gracious and bring the country together. Gore didn't concede until the first week of December. And I'm not saying he didn't have a legitimate case, by the way. I'm just pointing that out. Now, that's a totally different era. That is an era of physical ballots in most cases. We're just starting to see the machines, right? Especially in 2004. But we were talking about one state and hanging chads. And that shit lasted fucking, I don't know, a month plus. Right now, we're talking about something way different. That's why I wanted to wait on the Q stuff. Because now we're talking about, we could possibly have a Supreme Court ruling just on the legitimacy of mail-in ballots themselves that weren't just absentee ballots that you went and got. There's a possibility that all those get thrown out, and then we know what the polls look like. Now, I'm not saying that does happen, but that's just one of the many things. Now, again, I want to reiterate this. I'm not making predictions on who is going to be president. All I'm telling people is neither side is going to accept this. Now that Biden himself has been declared. I expect him to come out and make a government very quickly. Like we've never seen an administration so quick, we've never seen it before. To
It's
challenge
probably
whatever.
already made. Yeah. I mean, they probably already have it all on paper, I'm sure.
I'm talking about announcements and gearing up and saying, this is an unprecedented time. We need a quick transition like we've never seen before, etc. That's where we're going to start seeing a lot more of the chaos, in my opinion. Now, let's get to the hopium. Let's get to the QR codes. This is important. By the way, only 151 likes. Get the thumbs up. We got 741 watching, guys. We give it to you straight here. This isn't about left or right. This is about right and wrong. And I want to reiterate this. I've been demonetized 7+ months with no recourse. I did it 6 months ago live. I haven't heard nothing. I still haven't, gotten any strikes. I'm not harmful content. We're bringing you actual. Look, here it is. Media calls it for Biden. Should they ban Trump from Twitter like Alex Jones? Like that's the things that are promoted here. And remember to Rockfin. Rob, are you on Rockfin yet?
No, I'm not.
Get over there. What are you doing? You guys, I don't know why you and Abby are waiting. Let's do it. All right, QR codes. Now, here's the thing. Here's what actual real information about watermarks and QR codes looks like. Okay? This is an actual document. And if you scroll down, it tells you that some of the ballots absolutely do have watermarks on them. Of course they do. Depending on what election it is, what county, what state, that's regular. Now, as far as some kind of secret QR code to beat the deep state and count all the valid ballots, guys, stop with the fantasy world. That's clearly disinformation. Just to be able to secretly have a watermark. Forget about a blockchain QR code one, but just to have a secret watermark that you could keep away from the deep state is absurd on its face. Now, to keep that ultra secret with it and then put some kind of technology that's never been used in an election before and is hypothetical at best to be used in an election is fucking bonkers. And who's the guy putting it out? And why is that important? That's where we'll get into the Q stuff. Robbie Martin, take it away.
So yeah, Jason, I mean, of course, it's no surprise that this theory emanated from InfoWars, but specifically an InfoWars favorite who is, by my estimates, probably involved in QAnon. This guy's name is Steve Pieczenik, and he is someone who claims he has connections to the Mossad, who claims he has connections to the CIA. And many people might not know this, but Steve Pieczenik is not just someone that could potentially be involved in QAnon, but he's also someone who has been Tom Clancy's main advisor for almost every single one of his books. In fact, Jack Ryan, the recurring character in Tom Clancy's novels in 2 Tom Clancy books, is supposed to be Steve Pieczenik. So that alone is odd that Alex Jones would trust the information by Steve Pieczenik and take it at face value. But what happened, Jason, is I think his name is Owen Schroyer, the sort of the younger sort of Alex Jones reporter, the InfoWars reporter, had Steve on. Steve laid out this entire narrative, including all the things that you said leading up to when you just turned to me just now. But also Steve Pieczenik claimed that this was a plan hatched, a sting operation hatched by William Barr, the Department of Homeland Security. Steve Pieczenik claimed that it was an intentional loss, so that it was basically a sting operation to catch the Dems red-handed in massive voter fraud. What's interesting about that is it's very, very similar to a lot of the QAnon hopamine theories about, well, no, don't worry. If Hillary Clinton's not being arrested, she's secretly going to be arrested. Don't worry if it seems like Trump just lost, he's secretly going to win because it's a giant sting operation to intentionally lose. It has a very similar flavor of hope, of wanting us to basically just believe and have this faith-based thinking that everything's going to be okay. But what's interesting, Jason, you pulled up that chart a couple minutes ago. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that Department of Homeland Security would have been the one printing all of the ballots. It's very obvious. You can find this information out. It's similar to lottery tickets. States actually commission their own sort of secure printing houses individually to print ballots. This is how it's been done for decades. You can look this information up very easily. There's no evidence whatsoever for what Steve Pieczenik is suggesting. But what's really awesome, actually, and it happened last night, is David Knight, who by my estimates is probably the most well-respected employee over at InfoWars right now. I'll talk to a lot of people who still listen to InfoWars, and I'll be like, why do you still listen to InfoWars? And they'll be like, because David Knight, he still does good stuff. So what happened last night, David Knight came out and fully threw Steve Pieczenik under the bus, and didn't just say that he was spreading disinfo on InfoWars. He said that this is a CIA plant, that Steve is a CIA shill, and he's trying to trap us, meaning the InfoWars audience. So what David Knight just kind of let out on the program last night was that he believes one of Alex Jones' main sources for the past couple decades is a CIA plant who's trying to trap InfoWars. That's a big deal to have an employee say something like that live on the air. So I'm kind of hoping that, more people realize that Steve Pieczenik is spreading disinformation. And it's crazy, Jason. Steve Pieczenik's video went like incredibly viral, not just like from conspiracy people, but I saw the My Pillow guy.
Oh man,
posting it last night. So it's big. It's a big theory. In fact, I think maybe Lou Dobbs actually sort of promoted it on his show last night as well. So I think we're just getting injected again with more hopamine. And it's also kind of fascinating that Q has, like, whoever posts as Q has sort of abandoned that plan, whatever that plan was. Trust the plan. They haven't posted since election eve. And that's another interesting thing here, Jason. I think Trump, one of his best aces in the hole, if he really wanted to amp up this fight, would be to amp up the QAnon stuff, not to go necessarily full Q before the election, but to, kind of stoke it up a little more. And instead, it seemed like they kind of pulled away from it. So that's another interesting thing here. Why didn't they amp up this sort of aggressive energy of these armies of people who are willing to get into the streets with guns, who think they're fighting the deep state? Why did they sort of let that go? So that to me is another indicator that they're not in for the fight. And I'm not saying that Trump is definitely involved in QAnon or he's part of it, but I do think Trump has basically used QAnon to his advantage at the very least. And right now, we don't see any activity from Q or the president, really, other than just a few kind of, frankly, half-assed tweets. So I think what really needs to happen here, Jason, is somebody needs to get in Trump's ear, either Tucker or one of those people, to be like, dude, you need to like get out there and go full Roy Cohn, counterpunch, show strength, be aggressive, show confidence. And until that happens, I just don't think this is going to work out for him. And you mentioned the Supreme Court stuff. One of the interesting things is Jonathan Turley, who is kind of he testified during impeachment. Tucker Carlson has him on a lot. So far, he's been mostly on Trump's side, legally speaking. What he tweeted today is, the Trump legal strategy has not been impressive. There are accounts of ineligible voting, but the Trump team will have to show greater focus, present harder evidence to secure judicial review. As I stated in this column, such review would address lingering doubts. So I think what Jonathan Turley is basically saying is that even if they were to go to the Supreme Court, Jason, they would need to basically get a recount going in several states. And statistically speaking, unless there was like tens of thousands of fraudulent votes in every one of those states, the recount is not going to shape out to be pro-Trump automatically. I mean, in most cases, most recounts usually end up with the original result, statistically speaking.
I think you're right on that aspect, but that's if they keep all the mail-in ballots. I think that's going to be the play at the end of the day, that there could be a Supreme Court ruling on that issue alone. But, I want to rewind a little bit just to get everybody off the hopium for a second. Guys, this is it. This is the end. So the secret indictments are over. Anybody who believed in imagination land indictments, it's over. So this is why I think that number one, Q is waiting because, what grift do they run with? They probably run with a similar grift like this. And by the way, this is a grift when David Wilcock, the ancient aliens shill, the Japanese Yakuza versus the Illuminati shill, the do anything for a buck, comb over, egg-headed shill, and I will call him a shill, okay, says it's true and that his secret sources have told him that this is a sting operation. Stop. Now, I think that the reason that you put out disinformation like that is, number one, to make everybody look less credible. But, so if they put out any kind of credible information about voter fraud or irregularities or some of the legal issues that might be going on, people will point to the ridiculousness of that, or all the people that tweeted out the guy burning the ballots in the woods and all the stuff no one checked up on, number one. But number two, we've now, anything associated with QAnon other than, and honestly, it's probably pretty dangerous we're even talking about it like we are. Anything minor pro QAnon, you get to just censor the person. You get to kick them off of social media. They don't get a voice. So maybe that person bought into like 10 or 15 or maybe even 35% bullshit, but 65% of it was real, and you still don't want that circling. And then on top of that, the thing with QAnon that I think the mainstream media didn't like is it was effective enough to activate people into the streets with the Save Our Children hashtags, etc. So whether or not it's true or not, it still is rooted in people getting out into the streets for Trump, and that's not a good look no matter what, okay? And by the way, again, people, if you're new to my game, I'm telling you right now, I don't like it. I don't like the fact that we go into the hopium, that we promote hoaxes. I think it is detrimental. But I don't like people taking away free speech. And to that point, do you think there is a possibility now that the networks have established that it's Joe, just like there's, I don't know if you watched that 60 Minutes interview with Trump, but that point where he sits across from her and talks about the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and she just goes, no, there's no scandal. Like, literally, no, there's no, like, laughs at him. And for somebody that's seen the texts, and I'm going to say this, censor me if you like, YouTube, there are texts that clearly show Joe and Hunter discussing a improper relationship between Hunter Biden and Joe's 14-year-old granddaughter, his dead son's daughter, Beau's daughter at the time. You have an incest pedophilia scandal that no one in the mainstream touched. No one in the mainstream touched, okay? So I'm not talking about Chinese torture porn. I'm not talking about imagination land. I'm talking about real shit. And when she just goes, no. Isn't there a huge problem with the amount of censorship we're about to see? I think it's about to go in hyperdrive. I think that it is a possibility that Jack Dorsey says, well, you know what? He's no longer the legitimate president. Let's take his account down Alex Jones style. Is that too much? Is that not going to happen? What do you think?
No, I think it's definitely a possibility. Technically, Trump has violated, long-standing Twitter rules, so they could just be like, it's time. That would make total sense to me. I could easily see them doing that. I could easily see the internet censorship getting a lot worse under Joe Biden. But I think we need to go back a little bit to the Trump era and think if some of these people were actually kamikazes, sort of plain scorched earth, both sides of this spectrum. Jason, I know it sounds a little conspiratorial, and I know this program allows this type of thinking, but sometimes I wonder if not just, Silicon Valley itself, a lot of these blue checkmark journalists and mainstream media articles have come out saying, well, we have discovered that YouTube has been algorithmically promoting alt-right content. Milo is getting boosted because it made a lot of money for YouTube. Sensationalism and fear generates clicks and generates revenue. That's what a lot of the mainstream journalists concluded about the algorithmic boosting of some of this so-called hate speech. But what's interesting, Jason, is what if that wasn't just for profits, and what if it was actually partly to generate so much outrage so that the Silicon Valley class at the end of all this could save us? Just in the same way that Trump generated so much outrage that we need the CIA and the intelligence community to come and save us. It has a similar feeling to me. And I wonder sometimes, Jason, if a lot of these other people who are claiming to be on the right or pro-Trump are actually feeding into this system intentionally. I honestly wonder that. Ben Shapiro, for example, he has borderline broken the Facebook rules to the point where I could see him, kind of playing into that scenario and being like, Facebook is trying to censor me. This is war. I mean, that's just a side example. But what I'm trying to say is that I think you're right. The censorship will get worse. The Hunter Biden laptop, basically removing it from Twitter, removing the New York Post story, locking New York Post account, was absolutely absurd that they would take that measure to get rid of a story like that. When ultimately, I mean, let's just face facts here. The people who rolled this laptop story out, Rudy Giuliani, Bannon, Miles Guo, his Chinese billionaire funder, they were pretty sloppy with the rollout. They should have, I think, if they really wanted to blow open that story about Hunter Biden being sexually inappropriate with his niece, they should have gone and interviewed some of the people in those text messages. They should have made a really solid framing of that story and really pushed that hard. Instead, what they did was sort of blast out 20 pictures of Hunter Biden's dick on gnews.com. And I'm thinking, this kind of seems like it's a distraction for what the real scandal is here. Like, yeah, it's crazy that Hunter Biden is smoking crack and getting a foot job, but like, where's the meat? Where's the stuff that's really going to catch people's attention? And that was also strange to me, as why they were so sloppy with that rollout. Why didn't they just dump the whole thing as a torrent, 2 months ago and have the internet community dig through it? We still don't have that data. So that's a little bit weird to me, is why they rolled that out so poorly. I would think if I was them, as soon as Twitter censored that story, I would have just blasted out a torrent online and said, have at every single picture, every single text messages, do it. Just destroy Hunter Biden with it.
But when was the last time we got that? Like, even with the Dark Overlord 9/11 documents,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It was a third party that blasted out a torrent of encrypted files. The era of torrent drops, I think the last one we saw, and you could get it in other places, again, it was a third party that did that. It wasn't like WikiLeaks dropped a torrent of Vault 7. We should be seeing more of that no matter what, Robbie. Honestly, we should. Yeah. Again, you and I were just as shocked as anyone. We did a broadcast on the laptop when things were still ultra sketchy and still are. Not too much more has been revealed. A few things have been solidified, but there has been no mainstream deep dive into the scandals that are obviously awry on that laptop and extremely legitimate. And maybe one day I'll eat crow and there'll be some horrific shit that pops off there that I didn't think was possible, but there it is. I don't know. But that's almost a moot point, because it feels like right now, like you just said, let's say there was a promotion of the alt-right, not just for profit, but to, sow these seeds of opposition against neighbors, against family members, against people in general, for, a coming destruction of everything we've held dear. Because all I'm hearing on the mainstream media is, Trump wants to, embarrass democracy, wants to illegitimize our system. And, he's the one attacking democracy. When, again, I haven't heard that. I said he wants to recount the votes and get all the legitimate votes in there. And especially in an era of, these mail-in ballots, I'm not against that. I'm not. But like you said, there have been these narratives built up so hardcore that now I'm looking at it this way. Parties in the streets for the Dems and the people that voted for the Biden over the next couple days, I think. Then the injunctions by Trump and whatever he says and speeches that are put out there slowly and gradually come. His opposition comes out. I don't think he's laying down, Robbie. And maybe by this time next week, that's when some of the actual old school, what you'll hear in the media is it'll be, well, depending on what you listen to, it's the Proud Boys and the white supremacists for Trump. And then you'll hear in the other media, Antifa's coming out hard for Zombie Joe and the boys. And you might see those kind of, dare I say it, Charlottesville-esque clashes combined with what we saw with BLM, you know what I mean, over the summer. I just don't see it any other way. I mean, again, I move for a reason. I think that you're going to see this in a lot of areas. I don't think he's laying down. I think that For instance, Bannon has said he's already basically won. And you need to see that Fox News clip. But what are your thoughts on Bannon coming out? And I noticed that he was reading it off a piece of paper too. Don't get me wrong, Bannon's pretty slick, but I think in an off-the-cuff debate, I or anybody else of any intelligence would own him on a lot of issues. He still goes to the piece of paper. He's obviously drinking a lot during the day. Sorry, Steve, you are. He said he wanted to see Ray and Fauci's head on pikes outside of the White House, and then was immediately banned from Twitter. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it seems like a real kamikaze move to me, Jason. I mean, he can't go out there and say I'm a conservative who's being censored by social media after saying that. I mean, if you or I said that, we'd probably get our accounts banned too. So I mean, it was a little more than crazy to me to hear him say that, because especially considering Christopher Wray was still in the inner circle only maybe like 4 months ago. So that kind of flipped really quick. And I think I'm trying to think of what was it that outraged them so much about Wray? Is it because he said they might be foreign interference in the election? Like, what was the moment that really pissed him off about Wray? I'm having a hard time pointing it out. I mean, I understand the Fauci comment. The Wray thing is a little extreme, to say the least. But I mean, Steve Bannon, he's a fighter. And I think I watched his show War Room Pandemic every day. And I think that was another indicator for me, Jason, that Trump might actually roll over, because Steve Bannon and his staff seemed very, very frustrated by Trump's response. They weren't bashing Trump. They weren't, going after him for being a coward, but they almost were. I mean, the tone of their show for the past few days was extremely frustrated. I think they feel like they have their hands tied. The fact that Trump is basically pouring this legal effort into Rudy Giuliani, running the PR for it, I think is a really bad idea. I mean, Rudy Giuliani is a joke. And not only is he a joke, he has a really, really sketchy past. I mean, the 9/11 crime scene evidence that he destroyed, his anthrax cleanup company, him representing Manuel Noriega when he used to run a law firm. There's a lot of bizarre, sketchy things about him, and I just find it incredibly weird that Trump thinks it's a good idea to let Rudy, again, be the face of something like this, because it needs to be, as Jonathan Turley said, it needs to be a more, I think, stronger legal effort. So I don't think Rudy Giuliani is a great choice. I think Bannon actually, even if he drinks more than Rudy, he still, I think, would be able to bring more fire to this process. And so I don't know what's going to happen to Bannon. I've been hearing things that he is actually, potentially facing more charges, not just the build the wall fraud that he's currently being charged for, but also Miles Guo's $300 million fraud investigation by the SEC and FBI, which is currently underway. So I don't know what's going to happen to him, but Revolver News, which was a website that was hosted by his co-host, I think Rashim something, also got removed from Twitter. And they all have the laptop stuff. All these guys have the laptop data, like all him and his co-hosts. And if I was them, I would just leak it all right now, like regardless of who wins this or not, because, why not just leak it all out, give it to all the Republicans, so that you can keep Biden in these protracted sort of congressional investigations that just keep slamming him over and over again while he's president. That would be my play if I was from the Bannon side. I don't know if they're going to do that. And also, I think Bannon has to be careful, because if he is facing a legal predicament, he's going to need a pardon from Trump as well before before Biden's inaugurated, if Biden eventually clinches this. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Jason. I mean, I think one bad sign in terms of the MAGA street force actually taking this to the hilt is that Alex Jones actually said in Arizona, I think it was last night or the night before, I want everybody to go out there and surround the White House. Nobody came. I mean, that's not a good sign. I mean, if you asked me 1 year ago if Alex Jones said that, I would be like, damn, that's scary. Alex Jones is going to get, thousands of his followers out to D.C. No one showed up. So I think that there's a disconnect happening here right now where the energy that was sort of all this unified MAGA energy is fizzling before our very eyes. So I think they need to come up with something really fast here. Besides these, individual state lawsuits, it's going to need to be something much stronger, I think, on a PR level.
Well, just to go back to Ray, I think that one of the reasons that, he's mentioning Ray is because now it's been revealed that Ray had that laptop since December. You know what I mean? And that does, you know what I mean? And I think that does ask a big question as to why the impeachment even went through and why we just found out about a possible money laundering investigation after we get the laptop, after we get the Boblinsky interviews. Even that whole thumb drive with Tucker Carlson was really bizarre because I saw so many people so readily on the left going, oh, looks like the dog ate my conspiracy theory, as if Tucker would lie about saying, seeing something like that and then sending it to his office or not having a backup. All those things seemed absurd to me that was a possibility. And then, of course, when, UPS found it and it wasn't in the package and it was on the floor, it was even weirder. We're in odd times, man. We're in odd times, and there's plenty of fuel for any fire out there. I just warn people. You get caught putting out 100% stark raving lunacy or bullshit, they're going to pull your voice and your account. So now is the time to pull back from the hopium, okay? Look at everything extremely objectively. Only share things that you can back up either by documentation or authoritative sources. Otherwise, I think that there's a good chance that you will be part of the Orwellian measures to silence voices. The website is MediaRoots.org. You can follow him at Fluorescent Gray as well and go subscribe to a very heavy agenda. Robbie, why don't you tell people about the awesome 10-year anniversary show that you just did with your sister and the special guest that just kept popping in?
Yeah, we just did. We've been on the air for 10 years. We've been doing a podcast longer than almost anybody. And we did our first live stream, which was pretty cool. Usually we record it and we release it later, but this was our first live one. It's a lot of fun. And we had Mike Jackman, coming in and doing the best parody voice of Alex Jones ever. I mean, the guy kills it. He's amazing. And I think if Alex Jones honestly heard it, he would get creeped out because it's so perfect. So shout out to Mike Jackman. And I co-host my podcast with my sister, Abby Martin. We're about to do a new episode, sort of a post-mortem of the election. And I guess just if Q is listening out there, where'd you go, man? Like, where are you? Your followers need you. They need that hopium, So I don't know. I mean, I heard some rumors that Jim Watkins or somebody is trying to sell the Q identity for $1 million right now on the deep web. I don't know if that's true. Somebody better snatch that up. Maybe Alex Jones could buy out his competition and sort of get that back.
Robbie, I look forward to talking to you in the near future, especially with all the chaos. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.
Always fun to have Robbie Martin on. Guys, fully demonetized here 7+ months. Without you, I couldn't be doing this. $5, $10, $15, big donors. You absolutely mean the world to me. Obviously, we like differing voices here. Obviously, me and Robbie don't agree. Robbie leans a lot more left than I do. I want to hear from other people. I want to hear from other people what's going on in their mind. Why? Because it's important to not just stay in a tunnel. Okay, not just have confirmation bias. And we've never been about left or right here. It's about right and wrong. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Shade the Motion Picture are free right here, right now in the comments section, in the playlist section. Make sure to check them out. Thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. Join the Burmis Brigade. Let's get to 60,000. We've had some actual good momentum over here on the YouTube. But make sure you're joining us Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, okay, over at Rockfin. Make the free account. In fact, Friday's show is completely exclusive. I didn't take any of that show and post it to YouTube, so please go check that out. Make the free account now, Okay? We do it live and we do it free 5 days a week over at Rockfin. And if I get taken off this platform, guys, guess what? That's where you'll be able to find my stuff. I love you, and I'll see you on the flip side.